Hi guys and welcome back to SwitchUp. Well, they sure took their time getting some decent sales up on the eShop, but it looks like Nintendo of America have finally caught up. Now, yes, we know Nintendo don't do the greatest sales ever, but there are some real gems worth picking up right now on sale in both the US and the EU eShops. A big shout out to Glen. Unfortunately, he is not feeling well at all. He's very rough indeed, so wish him well in the comments. And as for all of us, well, let's jump into the sale. The first thing to note then is that all of pretty much the sale games that I mentioned in our last video, which were EU only at the time, are now in the US eShop, and as I mentioned, the reduction price has carried across, so it would actually be a lot cheaper for many of us EU people to use the US shop when we're going to buy our games. However, there are also some new ones as well. So the first game that we're going to look at then is the outstanding Divinity Original Sin 2, the Definitive Edition. Now, while it hasn't received the biggest price cut, I think it's around 20%, this is one of, if not the best RPGs I've played in a long time. It does have turn-based combat mechanics, but also has a party system that's going to be really familiar with fans of classic RPGs of old. The story is so intricately designed, and the amount of choice you're given throughout it is impressive. Plus, you can get a little cat as a pet, so well, why wouldn't you? Unless you're a dog person, and then, well, you can get a dog as well. I've got a review of this one up on the Nintendo Switch, and I would say if you're even remotely interested, now's the time to pick it up. As well as the main single-player campaign, there's also a hot seating arena mode where you can join a friend and battle it out. It's worth noting that overall the performance is decent. There were a few quirks, but the developers have also released a couple of patches already. You can choose from over 5 races, as well as 6 original characters which have been handcrafted by the developer. There's unlimited freedom to explore and experiment with friends or with AI companions. And overall, yeah, as I said at the start, one of the best classic RPG experiences on any platform, and amazing having it in handheld. Next up then we have Overwatch, the Legendary Edition, which has a nice 25% discount, especially considering the game hasn't been out for a great amount of time. This has all the things you'd hope for on the Switch version. There are motion controls here by default, thank you, and this team-based shooter has earned the accolades for very good reason. It's an incredible amount of fun. Now, the Switch version isn't the best version, but it is the only one you're going to be playing on the go. And despite some slightly negative comments about the title when it launched, I actually think this is a pretty decent version and it plays well enough, especially considering the game can't run on Switch. Anyone remember that little nugget? A decent title and worth looking at when it's 25% off.
I am with you.
EMP activated.
Incoming!
Another game that we've reviewed on the channel, and one that you'd have to have been more than just sleeping under a rock. You'd have to have been buried not to have heard how good it is the Amazing Cuphead. Now it's 25% off, and it employs a lovely rubber hosen style of artwork that was very prevalent back in the day, but the developers went a step further, and every single frame of animation with the game was lovingly crafted and it painstakingly produced. Glen just couldn't believe how good this game looked and played, but having the co-op option in there as well was the icing on the cake for us. Yes, there are times when you will just be pulling your hair out and it will just feel annoying, but then you'll want to go back for one more run and forget the 100 that came before it. A really enjoyable 2-player, tough as nails platform experience with some real boss rushing goodness thrown in. Well worth it at 25% off. At 50% off, I can finally afford to buy Mortal Kombat 11. I was gutted when Glen got to review this one because he really does know his stuff about the game. Again, the links to the reviews will be down in the description, but this now at $30 is an absolute bargain. Yes, the Nintendo Switch version doesn't have nearly the clarity of the PS4 or Xbox One, but what it does have is a very slick and fluid 60 frames per second at all times. And in a game where Twitch reactions are the main thing you're going to need, it does play very well indeed. There was a touch of controversy about some of its more grindy mechanics, but overall though I still think it's more than worth it at this kind of reduction. Something a little more quirky then, and a delightful little two-player co-op experience that is a massive 75% off right now, and it's Unraveled 2 from EA. You can play as a single player if you want, but really this shines as a couch co-op game, as you try and support each other through the various puzzles and difficult situations. You begin your adventure in a cold and imposing land, and then watch your surroundings blossom with new life as you chase the spark of adventure, or so it says on the eShop. There's a deep and quite detailed story as you progress through the game, and from what I can tell from Glen, it plays out at quite a relaxed pace as well. I'm sure he would definitely agree with me on this one at 75% off. This is an absolute must buy for fans of couch co-op. Now, I know of one Reddit group that's going to very much enjoy the next one, and it's Celeste. Every reviewer and their mum was delighted to play this game. I think we could describe it as the Dark Souls of mountain climbing games. This is amazing, and it is well worth all the praise it gets. It's brutally tricky, so don't expect a nice relaxing experience, but it tells a very emotional tale of overcoming mental anxieties and strains, and as I say, it's also tough as nails difficult, with an amazing soundtrack. It's currently half price, taking it down to around about $10, which is just absolute peanuts. Well worth picking up. I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball in next, and it's Monopoly. Yeah, I know, when it launched, I think it was a disaster in terms of the performance, but it's all been patched up now, and it's 67% off currently on the US eShop and probably some others. It has all the Monopoly shenanigans you knew growing up, except you don't have to have a fist fight over who gets to play as the dog. Well, I suppose you can really have a fist fight over who gets to play the dog if you really want to, but you don't have to. Everything's here from the game you'd love, and having the nice modern twist of being able to play together on the large screen while still giving you all of the functionality of the board game, for me works really well. With Christmas coming up, $13 just feels like a good time for some players to potentially pick it up, and also a good time to get those kids playing some absolute classic games. There is a demo available if you want to check it out and see if it works well for you, but you can't go too far wrong for that price. Okay, next up then we've got Wolfenstein II The New Colossus. Forget that forget that other one. We'll just pretend that never happened. This sequel to the critically acclaimed first game features everyone's favourite character, BJ Blazkowicz or Blasterbits, as he fights through a post-nuclear Manhattan. I think the main selling point for me on these games was not only does it have rock-solid shooting mechanics, but the characterization goes far beyond what we'd come to expect from the run-of-the-mill, churn-them-out yearly shooter. Call of what? They also throw in some really surprising and quirky little moments every now and then, and some calmer, quieter moments with again more story layered into it to allow for a little reflection and sometimes a little more serious reflection on some of the events depicted. Really a great series, and in fact I think the first two games are almost absolute classics. At 50% off, yes please.
Centuries ahead of anything you've ever seen or imagined.
Take us back to Berlin, Blazkowicz.
I think your old friend Frau Engel is leading the attack. Death's Head must have promoted her for her actions at the labor camp.
You know what you have here, Captain? This is the Eva's Helmet, the crown jewel of the Nazi U-boat fleet.
Get inside the compound, fast as you can. Wipe Death's Head off the face of the earth.
Death's Head. Should have killed that man long ago.
Got you, Stanton.
Next up then, another essential pickup for strategy fans. This strategic RPG is called For the King. It's an RPG strategy adventure game that has a few roguelike elements as well, where you can play cooperatively both online or locally. It revolves around the story that the king's dead, murdered by an unknown assailant, and the once peaceful kingdom of Farall is in absolute carnage. It describes itself as a blend of strategy, turn-based combat, where each playthrough is unique and does have some procedurally generated maps, but the reason I recommend it to you is because a good friend of ours, I believe it was the Flannel Fox, recommended it, and I take his recommendation seriously. He put a good amount of time into the game, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've heard from many of you as well that it's one not to miss. For 50% off, it's taking it down to a very cheap and appealing $12.49. Next up is a strategy game that, in my opinion, is one of the absolute all-time greats. I played a little bit of this back on PC, but it's currently 60% off on the Nintendo Switch, and that's Prison Architect, that's brought to us by Double 11. It's only retailing at $12. And what do? Well, you design prisons, and then you see exactly how well your designs work. It might be early on that you're designing something for those who forgot to pay that parking ticket. However, later in the game, it might be a super max prison that brings with it many more challenges and things to think about strategically. Not only are you the architect, but you're also the governor. You control every detail of the prison, from building new cells and facilities to hiring staff and creating reform programs. You'll be building padded cells to store away those who might be considering eating your liver, and doing deals and trades, or stopping contraband, gang warfare, many other things that can happen during the game. It's an excellent experience, and like I say, for 60% off, I think I can safely say if you're even slightly inclined towards strategic games, you're going to enjoy this one. Now, when Hob, the Definitive Edition, originally launched on the Nintendo Switch, it had some real performance issues, and that detracted from what was otherwise a very good adventure title. Since then, there have been a number of patches, and it now runs and looks much better. It's currently reduced from $20 down to $13.99, so quite a significant reduction. I believe it's also on sale in both the EU stores as well, and well worth taking a look at. After your character loses his arm very early in the story, don't worry, it's not spoilers, it's literally on the box art, he's then gifted a replacement. And there's a lovely moment that reminded me a lot of the Half-Life game. If you ever played Half-Life episodes, there was Dog, your helpful companion robot, and you have a character very similar to that in this game. The world itself is lovingly crafted, and there are lots of environmental puzzle platform elements to it, as well as an action element there as well. I love the whole steampunk style elements in there, and it really is a great game. When you venture beneath the surface, everything has such a nice sense of scale as the camera pans out and makes you feel a part of something perhaps a touch bigger. I can't recommend it enough at this price. Last but certainly not least is the incredible Dragon's Dogma. Now, I would have said at £30 it was a decent enough price and I gave it a very good review score, but again, it's currently 33% less than that, taking it down to $20, which is absolutely ridiculous for the amount of content you're getting here. I'd strongly suggest going and checking out our review if you're even remotely interested in action RPG titles, as it also has many unique and interesting mechanics that games just don't often have. Add in that the combat is by far some of the best you will see in any RPG title, and you've got a real recipe for success. Plus, you can go and download the porn I made of Glen, the PAWN I made of Glen for the game. They're like little, they're not like that. Right, just go and buy it. I'm sorry I lied, I just couldn't end the list because there are too many amazing games. Next up, I have to put Shantae HalfGenie Hero in there, which is currently half price. This is another genre-defining game. It's absolutely outstanding. It was actually the first Shantae game to be in full HD, if that matters to you, but those visuals are sublime. Everything about it is so responsive and tight, and as you whip people with your hair, I believe that was inspired by the developer's wife, who has very long hair, you can't help but feeling that someone poured a heck of a lot of love and attention into the game. With the sequel in the works at the moment, now's the time to spend $10 and get a whole lot of gameplay from this classic side-scrolling action platform game that also has a couple of cheeky little RPG elements thrown in as well. Okay, so there we have it. Many of the games I've chosen today actually have physical versions as well, which are also on sale, so make sure you go and check out your local retailers to see what kinds of deals you can get. I haven't mentioned the big names, your Xenoblade, your Skyrim, which have some decent reductions, as well as Zelda, but if you go and check out the link in the description, you can go and look at the other videos, which cover the majority of those titles, and they're also on sale in the EU as well as the US. Let us know down in the comments any that you've picked up that we haven't mentioned. There'll be tons, because my goodness is this a good sale. Those Dragon Ball games, my word, what a saving that is. As always guys, thanks to the patrons who support the channel each and every month, and to the rest of you who leave amazing comments and just engage. Finally, a big shout out to poor old Glen, who's not feeling well. Leave him some love down in the comments. For all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!